joining us for the Rural Life Virtual Summer Institute. Welcome to 6 Key Elements of Effective Literacy Instruction, Every Child, Every Day. My name is Sarah Kitzmiller, and I'm your session host. I'm here to support the session presenter, who I'll introduce shortly, offer technical assistance to participants, as well as share the session evaluation and certificate information at the end of the session. Please do not hesitate to use the chat to ask questions or request technical support. At this time, I would like to introduce to you your session presenter, Christy Snyder.
She needs to turn off her video.
John, can you hear?
Yes, Christy, turn off your video. Go down to the lower left-hand corner and go click on the stop video button, please.
Hello?
I still hear you.
Okay, what do I need to do?
Okay, I just stopped your video. I think you're ready to go now.
All right, so I got to go back into my screen sharing and all that?
No, your screen
No, you're sharing your screen.
Your screen share's there. You're ready to go. You're ready just to move through the slides.
Okay, well, I can't see. Okay. So we're on slide 2. You see that?
I do not. Is that the one?
Screen.
Is that the one that has you and Sarah on the screen, please?
No, it's the one that has the Scrabble thing that says reading on it.
Okay, it's not scrolling through your slides for some reason.
Okay, can you help me walk through?
Give me just a minute. Okay. 6 elements.
Do you see it now?
No, we do not. Okay, hang on.
That's all right. We'll get it pulled up on our end, Christy, and we can walk through them as you present.
So I'm trying to do
Okay,
right.
thank you so much.
Thank you, John.
It's got a lot going on. Okay, now I'm going to stop your screen sharing. Okay, Christy, try to screen share one more time on your end, okay?
All right.
Just try it. Okay, good. Now, we're at the Scrabble screen. Turn on closed captioning and try it now and see what happens.
All right. So I'm going to talk just a minute about Zoom. Some of us are pretty familiar with Zoom, probably a little more so than you ever thought you would be. But in case you're fairly new to Zoom, I'll take just a minute to talk about a couple of tools. First of all, along the bottom, you'll see your video and your microphone options. We would love to see your faces. I know that it's awkward, but that really helps to warm up what's otherwise a pretty sterile environment. So if you haven't started your video, please do that now. Also, your microphone can be muted or not. To keep the background noise at a minimum, we ask that you keep yourself muted unless, of course, you're sharing a comment or asking a question. And speaking of questions and comments, one other tool is the chat feature. You'll see that along your bottom middle of your toolbar. If you click that, it should open up the chat pane to the side. Feel free at any time to chat questions and make comments using that chat feature. Also, there are a couple of other things that you should know. When I share my screen, hopefully it'll keep sharing, it usually forces other people into full screen mode. And if that's not working for you, that's perfectly fine. You can hit the escape button on your computer and that will exit you out of full screen mode. Also, you can minimize or expand your participant window in whatever way that works best for you. Did you say hang on, John?
Go ahead. Go ahead. I was just trying to mute that microphone. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Thanks. All right, so this is how our hour together will go. We'll start with an immersive reading activity and transition into what I'm calling a comparative experience, and then break out with groups to explore the article Every Child, Every Day, which is the foundational article of our session. We'll do some whole group discussion and then take a deeper dive into the article. Then we'll wrap up and reflect and let Sarah direct you to the session evaluation and certificate of participation. So let's get started. How many of you, by show of hands, how many of you would say that you read accurately? Most people, I guess, since we're educators, would say they read accurately. Well, on the next slide, you're going to see a passage. I'm going to ask you to read that passage, and then when you've finished, please use the chat feature to share a one-sentence summary that effectively summarizes it. You're going to have 3 minutes to read the passage and write the one-sentence summary in the chat. Okay, you may begin. All right, y'all are doing great.
All right, some of the summaries that I'm seeing are, some people have said, Catherine said, a trial was conducted to test the withdrawal of male patients from alcohol to see which drugs might help best. Joshua Lawson said male patients with alcohol withdrawal received benzos for treatment and the results showed some improvement. And I see that Debbie Powers said the article discusses a clinical trial of drugs to treat alcohol withdrawal syndrome. Those were just a few of the responses that I'm seeing in the chat.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. So I'm wondering, how was this experience for you? Was it difficult to write this summary? And I'm wondering if somebody could tell me, if it was difficult, what made it difficult? You can unmute or you can share in the chat, either way.
I'll share. I teach science, so I've had to read articles like this, and they are very technically inclined. And so the writing and the vocabulary and it's probably from a medical journal, I would guess, and makes it extremely difficult. So it's high level of reading. It's probably college level or higher. And so if we handed that to a student, they would shut down.
Very good. I agree. So could I have done some things? Could I have offered you some guiding questions like what was the study about and what was the outcome that would have helped? Or, you know, if I'd kind of led you with how many drugs were reviewed for effectiveness in men, in treating men with alcohol withdrawal symptoms, would that have made this summary a little easier to write maybe? Can you think of anything else that I might have done to help you read this passage with more accuracy?
Front loading would have helped, yes.
Front loading some vocabulary, definitely. Anybody else?
Someone says in the chat to go back over, and even then still challenging, but maybe rereading and providing some definitions prior to reading possibly.
What if I'd read it out loud? Do you think that would have made any difference? If I'd read it to you? Maybe. All right, thank you for sharing.
Anytime I do a difficult text with my students, I always provide time and opportunity for them to circle words they're unfamiliar with, and then they have a partner discussion or a table discussion, and then from there, if they still can't figure it out, then they go and they look it up, and then we come back whole class and we discuss the words, or is there anything you still didn't get, and then we read through it once more, now understanding our vocabulary.
Yeah, that's a great strategy. Thank you, Dana, for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm going to try to get this thing to advance. There we go. So one of the 6 key elements of effective literacy instruction is creating opportunities for students to read accurately. And by accurately, I mean you read enough words without mistakes to understand what you're reading. So by asking you to read the excerpt from the alcohol withdrawal passage, I probably did not accomplish that for you. Like many of you said, it was too high level. I didn't front load any vocabulary. It was probably way too technical. How did that leave you feeling? Can you unmute and tell me? How'd you feel?
Well, at first, since we've been out of school so long, it was like, whoa, we've got to get back into school mode.
Right. You think your students are going to feel that way if we get to go back?
Absolutely. Yes. They feel inadequate, I would imagine.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, in today's session, we're going to build your awareness of these 6 key elements of effective literacy instruction. We're going to dive deeply into a few of these and then explore some practical strategies of using these elements in the classroom. So think about your favorite book or something you've read recently that you really enjoyed. And what I would like for you to do is to choose a chat buddy. Choose one person in the chat with whom to share a 1-sentence summary of it. I'm going to give you 1 minute to do that. Oh, someone is asking how you choose a chat buddy. If you notice at the bottom of your chat, there's a 2, all the participants in our session. You can just choose one person randomly to be your chat buddy. Sorry about that. All right. So obviously that was probably much easier. And I'm wondering what made it easier for you. What do you think made that so much easier to do? You could either share in the chat or unmute to share.
Someone said in the chat that it's familiar. We read for pleasure, so something that they read to enjoy or drawing on an experience.
Absolutely. And I would bet you probably understood the book you chose on your own better than the alcohol withdrawal passage. And obviously that is the case for your students as well. Next, we're going to explore the article Every Child, Every Day, written by Richard Allington and Rachel Gabriel. Sarah or John has divided you into 6 breakout rooms. And when you get to your room, I'd like to ask everyone to please read the introduction to the article and then the element that corresponds to your room number and the closing section of the article. For example, those in breakout room 1 will read the intro, the information about element 1, and the closing of the article. Those placed in breakout room 2 will read the intro, information about element 2, and the closing, and so on and so forth. You will also need to assign a spokesperson for your group. So after reading the article, please discuss responses to these 3 guiding questions within your small group. What was your major takeaway? What challenges you're thinking? And what assumption do you think the authors are making? Sarah's going to place the link to the article in the chat and the guiding questions as well, but it might also be helpful for you just to snap a picture of this slide so that you'll be sure to have what you need when you get popped into your breakout room. You can also access the article from this bit.ly link on the slide. You can just type that into any device. When you get to your breakout room, you're going to have 8 minutes to read your sections and discuss your 3 questions with your breakout group, and then you'll be brought back to the main room where your spokesperson will share your responses. All right, you got your picture of your guiding questions? If you do, then please accept your invitation to your breakout room when John sends that and access your article now.
Yes, and be sure to go to the chat and go ahead and click that bit.ly link to have the article open, because when you go to the rooms, you're going to lose this chat view for a while, okay? So make sure that you get your picture of the slide, have your guiding questions, and make sure you've clicked on the bit.ly link in the chat, or that you can get to it through your picture of the slide, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and open up breakout rooms. All you have to do is click on the little dialog box to accept to enter the breakout room, and here we go. Christy, each breakout room has a coach except for number 5 and 6.
Okay.
All the others have a coach assigned to them.
Okay. Thank you, John.
All right. Now, in general, you can see the people who are not in the room right now, okay?
Is that just because they haven't accepted the
They
invitation?
haven't accepted the invitation, that's correct. Now, that could be for several reasons, but they haven't accepted the invite, okay? Now, when we get done with breakout rooms, you just tell me and I will close them, and that will give everybody 1 minute to come back out.
Okay. It feels very odd to have my video off.
It's okay. It's just saving bandwidth on your end, okay? It's
Okay.
only for you. Nobody else is affected by that, but
Okay.
it locks up your computer and does some other stuff, so better not to have it on.
Okay.
Are you going to do breakout rooms again or just once?
No, they'll go back again.
Okay. I may have to recreate them, which is no big deal. I'll just do it. No big deal.
Now, I don't have to go back, John.
Oh, you're fine. It's not a problem. I just wanted to make sure.
Actually, John, I'm thinking about my other session. I'm so nervous.
Oh, you're fine.
They're not going to go back to breakout.
They're not. Okay. Okay.
No.
That's great.
I'm sorry.
That's great. Because I think whenever you close them, the breakout room kind of goes away and you have to recreate them again.
Okay. I'm so sorry.
Oh, you're fine. Not the problem.
So, John, there's about 2 minutes left on this timer. Should I tell you when there's 1 minute left?
I'm looking at it right now, Christy. I can see it. And when it does
Okay.
reach 1 minute, I will go ahead and close the rooms.
Okay.
And
All
what
right.
that does is it pops up a message in the room that says the rooms will close in 1 minute. Now, people can leave earlier by clicking a link that it pops up.
Mm-hmm.
But if they want to stick around, then after that 1 minute, it'll automatically close them all. That's what it basically does.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to close the rooms. People will start reappearing. And after when your timer goes off, the rooms will be closed totally.
All right. Thank you, John.
And here they come.
All right. Welcome back. Now I'd like for you to share your thoughts from your small groups with the whole group so that we can learn from one another. John, does it look like everybody's back?
They should be, yes.
All right,
Yes.
thank you. So as we go through this article element by element, if each spokesperson will just unmute and share their group's responses to the 3 guiding questions. Due to time, I can give you about 1 minute to do that. I'll start with the introduction. So in the introduction, Allington and Gabriel posit that teachers often make instructional decisions that compromise or supplant the kind of experiences all students need to become engaged, successful readers. And they say that this is especially true for struggling readers. So they offer these 6 elements of instruction that every student should experience every day as kind of a solution. So let's get started with the first element, which is every child reads something he or she chooses. Who's my spokesperson for group 1? Do you have a spokesperson?
Well, Christy, we didn't really choose one. They were reading, but I think the takeaway, and I think I can safely say that research, not only is it just common sense, but research indicates that sometime during the day, students should be allowed to choose what they read. It's not saying that it's okay to require to require students to read something teachers have chosen, but at some point in the day, they really need to have the opportunity to have some choice in what they're reading. And just simply said, the studies indicate that increases recreational and lifelong readers.
Yeah. What challenged your group's thinking, Catherine?
Budgets and I think teachers' budgets was probably the number one reason, but I do think, but the article also indicated that we always come up with money for the workbooks, copiers, and things like that. And people to be creative about finding ways to have classroom libraries and there's creative ways to do that, and it just, we need to look at that.
Sure. Did you talk about what assumption you think the authors are making?
No, we did not talk about that.
All right, that's okay. You didn't get to it.
No, we didn't.
The
But
assumption is.
but I would. But yeah. My takeaway, and I don't want to speak for everybody, but I am. But my takeaway is that it looks like I said, for the challenges, we got to be creative, whether it's parent groups, a classroom fundraiser. There's got to be ways to think about bringing text into the classroom of high interest and giving kids choice. And you know, they don't mention the librarians, but obviously a classroom teacher and a librarian need to work very closely on allowing some of this.
Okay, thank you, Catherine, for being that spokesperson. Group number 2, every child reads accurately. Who's my spokesperson for group number 2?
We didn't really have time to choose a spokesperson either, but I'll go ahead and take that if that's okay.
Yes, thank you.
Sure. So we also did not make it to question 3, but as far as our takeaway, question 1, we kind of collectively agreed that students need to be reading something on their level, something that interests them. And we only just really got a little bit into challenging that. And something that was challenging to that was, okay, if they're reading something that is on their level, which may be below grade level, and yet, you know, we've got research that says students need to be challenged at their grade level. So how are you going to accommodate all those different reading levels to make sure that everyone in your group succeeds?
Yeah, that's a great point. So we need lots of scaffolding to accomplish that. Thank you for sharing. Group number 3, every child reads something he or she understands. Who's my spokesperson there?
We didn't assign a spokesperson either, but it seemed like based off the sharing that we had, that it's this idea that kids are able to comprehend more when they read more, not skill build. So it's the idea that for them to be better readers, they have to read more. And even thinking about, we talked a lot about like the choice as well, being able to have some say and being able to practice reading things that they can comprehend. And so we really didn't get to the challenges or the assumptions, but we talked a lot about how, you know, it is interesting to think about kids do better and their brains improve when struggling readers improve when they read more. So just making sure that teachers who are high performing teachers had kids in their classrooms that read more too. So that was something to think about as well for instructional takeaways. So that was kind of the conversation that we had in group 3.
Okay, thank you, Sarah, for sharing. Group 4, every child writes about something personally meaningful. What was your major takeaway from group 4? Anybody in group 4?
I can share. This is Bethany. Of course, we were talking, yeah, our group was around writing and just noting how do we balance finding time for writing in the ways that we know our standards ask for us to do, especially for ELA teachers, and then also making time for writing to topics that are personally meaningful for students, and realizing that we can do both. And again, it's just about providing little chunks of time, little moments in time where kids get a chance to just write about that thing that they know about. Yeah, I like that in the article it talked about, you know, that as adults, we tend to write about things we know about. And so giving students a chance to do that strengthens their ability to write, and it also gives them something that they can read themselves, and they're the ones that wrote it.
Did anything challenge your thinking in group 4, Bethany? Y'all may not.
I think at the closing, we talked about some things that challenged our thinking in the closing section. But I think really in terms of the writing, it's just how to find a balance of writing to the way the standards ask us to, and then also leaving some time for kids just to write about love and enjoy.
Okay, thank you so much. Group 5, every child talks with peers about reading and writing.
We discussed the fact that it's, they talked about that it only had to be 10 minutes a day, so it was actually fairly easy to implement. It didn't take a lot of extra planning. One of the challenges, though, would be create a class culture where the students understood that it needed to be a literate conversation. That the takeaway is that just 10 minutes a day to discuss their reading can improve their comprehension and engagement, and that was across all reading levels. Even your struggling readers benefited greatly from just that 10 minutes to discuss what they'd read. That we do a lot to have them recall information to prove that they read it, but that this was more of an unstructured conversation that allowed them to just kind of discuss and learn from their peers in a more relaxed, informal setting. And that it benefited greatly too with your EL students, because it let them better understand what they'd been reading, and that connection between reading and writing and speaking and listening benefited comprehension and language competence.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much. All right, our last element is every child listens to a fluent adult read aloud. What was your major takeaway from that section, group 6?
Well, I guess I can go. Every child listens to a fluent adult. I guess that's what we got out of it, was just, you just need to implement reading every day. And if you don't do that strategy, kids won't get the vocabulary or the background knowledge. So that would be very important that you include that. I think challenge is just, they said there really isn't much of a challenge. It's just, will you implement it? Will you make it a priority in your classroom to take the time to schedule it in, so they can actually hear an adult reading some of those things that are maybe a little tougher to read. And their assumption is that you'll actually try and do this, you'll just implement it and try to do it, that strategy. So wasn't really a lot of preparation. It's just something you have to implement in your classroom. So, but the more you do it, the more the vocabulary, the more the background knowledge.
Yeah, and I think reading out loud to students is something we typically think of elementary school teachers doing, but it can be very effective for middle school level students as well. And as you said, just something so simple to implement. All right, so now that you have a better understanding of each of these 6 key elements, we're going to dive deeper into a few of these. The first one is choice. Why is the element of choice so important to effective literacy instruction? Let's watch this video, hopefully, to learn more.
Can somebody read that learning target for me?
I can participate fully and mindfully in my book club discussion.
When teachers enable choice, they're setting in motion a child's ability to direct interest towards something that matters to them. If we can capitalize on the interest that a child has, what we've done is taken some of the difficulty out of learning it.
In my book, I Am Malala, the city that they live in is in Moore.
We want students to push their developmental range. We want them to shut down and be discouraged, but at the same time, we want to push them to the greatest level of challenge that they can do with confidence.
Let's
get started one person at a time. We're summarizing. Ready? Go.
Oh, book choice is everything for getting a lot of kids to read.
In my book, Does My Head Look Big in This? People have started to accept Amal for her choice to wear the hijab.
So I give them about 10 different books to choose from.
John, we may have lost Christy for a minute.
Yes, that's the way it looks.
May
Hopefully
have kicked
she'll
her
keep-
out. All right, hey, everybody, stretch break. Just
Yeah.
a moment. Christy will hop back on. Thanks for hanging with us.
Yeah, I'm afraid her internet's just too flaky
Mm-hmm.
where she is.
Can you hear me?
There you are, Christy.
Yes.
We hear
Okay.
you.
We hear you.
Now, go ahead and share your screen again, please.
Okay, it's not giving me that. I don't see that option now.
Okay. All right. I don't have the ability to do it from there. So let me do something right here real quick. Give me just a minute. I don't know exactly which slide you were on.
11.
11. All right. Let's see what we got. See if this is it right here. Hang on. Let me get into present mode and share my screen. Okay. Okay, do you all see it? Is that number 11, Christy?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now let's go through it. So is that the one you want to be?
Let's just skip ahead to 12.
Okay, 12's coming.
Actually, no, I'm sorry. Stay at 11. Stay at 11.
All right, you just tell me what to do.
All right. So I apologize, guys. I don't know what's up with my internet, but we know that research shows that students read more, understand more, and are more likely to continue reading when they have the opportunity to choose what they read. And that has a direct and positive impact on improving literacy. So think about how choice relates to that comparative activity we did with the alcohol withdrawal passage in the book of your choice. Was it easier for you to summarize and talk about? It's the case for your students as well.
Christy, was that last comment a question? It broke up just a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm back. I'm so sorry, guys.
No worries, no worries.
Something's
All
wrong.
right, John, can you go to the next slide, please?
Sure.
So one way to incorporate choice into your classroom is to offer access to a classroom library. Engagement is so powerful. When a student can choose what he reads, that it can even trump family background when it comes to reading achievement. Studies have shown that students with high reading engagement but lower parental education and income have higher reading achievement than students with lower reading engagement and the same socioeconomic background. So a crucial element of book appeal is self-selection, or the opportunity for students to choose what they want to read regardless of a teacher's preference. And it's difficult for readers to develop a sense of ownership and purpose if someone else is telling them what to read. A surefire way to develop a sense, to induce a love of reading is to invite students to select their own books. And freedom of choice in what a student reads also allows for the greatest possibility that when that reluctant reader does give a book a try, he's going to hit on something that he really likes. Keep in mind that classroom libraries aren't just for ELA teachers' classrooms. Having classroom libraries in all classrooms increases students' access to books and helps to instill a deeper culture of literacy within the school. All right, John, will you send me to the next slide, please? Classroom libraries aren't the only way to incorporate student choice. As mentioned in the video, I hope you got this far. I couldn't really tell how far it got before you got disconnected. But they mentioned that you should really get to know your students, know what their interests are so that you can guide them in making the best choices in what they read. So you're not just giving them unlimited options, you know, but teachers can help guide students with their choices and thus personalize their learning. Other ways to incorporate more choice include giving students options in what articles they read or what writing assignments they respond to. You can also use things like Pear Deck so that students, that pairs with your Google Slides, so that students have options in how they respond to a given assignment. And implementing project-based learning is another way to incorporate student choice in what they read. Keep in mind that when given choice, students are still required to meet standards. But when they can make some of their own choices, their motivation increases and learning is more authentic. So what challenges do you foresee with allowing students to choose what they read? You can respond in the chat or you can unmute.
I know some challenges that I have. Some students, they want to choose books that's not on their level just because they like or they're interested in that book. And that can pose a challenge because if it's not on their level, they can't read it. I know some wanted like 8th grade books and they couldn't read it.
And in that video, Nikki, maybe y'all can go back and watch it at a later time, but the teacher explains a strategy for helping students choose grade appropriate books, you know, books on their level. She uses something called PICK, but that's worth going back and looking at. But I agree that that can be a challenge. Anybody else? Do you feel like giving students more choice might make more work for you? Maybe not. Okay. All right, John, will you send us to the next slide, please?
Mm-hmm.
So the next element that we're going to explore a little more deeply is every child writes about something personally meaningful. We know that writing provides a different modality within which to practice the skills and strategies of reading for an authentic purpose. But let's dive in a little deeper. Think back again to our comparative activity. You were probably more successful in writing about the book you chose. And if I was going to predict why, I would say that it probably in some way the book that you love or the book that you chose was personally meaningful to you. Maybe it was about a topic of interest or a person of interest, but in some way it was probably personally meaningful to you. Engagement is increased when you're writing about something that is personally meaningful. So a few years ago, a major study called the Meaningful Writing Project asked students to describe a writing assignment that was meaningful to them and why it was meaningful. And what the findings showed is that in order for writing to be meaningful, the assignment must have 3 core attributes. Next slide, please, John.
Okay.
First, writing is meaningful when it gives students a say or gives students a sense of agency. Secondly, writing is meaningful when it engages students actively, not passively. Students need assignments that give them opportunities to be more interactive with their teacher, their peers, and the content during the writing process. And finally, writing is meaningful when it transfers. This means that students either need to be able to connect to their prior knowledge to the assignment, or it needs to help them develop skills that they feel they're going to need in the future. So keep in mind that when teachers place an emphasis on ideas over mechanics and on creativity over regurgitation, student writing flourishes. Good writing has always been driven by the desire to communicate something of great value and change the reader's state of mind. Writers have always attempted to convey beliefs and preserve stories and provide guidance. As teachers, we often forget about that greater purpose, emphasizing conventions over writing at its heart. So our writing programs often ask students to regurgitate somebody else's ideas through rigidly structured essays and reports. Even our creative writing lessons are frequently confined to learning about plot structure or some prescribed poetry template. Reducing writing to formulas may make it easier to teach and assess, and I get that. And I even used to teach that way. But I have seen over the past 2 years working with this grant that invariably leads to stifled communication. You may remember as a student yourself being forced to produce these dull thesis-driven 5-paragraph essays. Reducing writing to a formula is an inferior exercise for middle school students, and it does not move us closer to the goal of improving literacy, fostering the practice of making writing personally meaningful rather than formulaic does. Next slide, please, John. So how would writing in a personally meaningful way actually look in a classroom? Daily opportunities to write about current events or topics is one way to accomplish this. I served a teacher who over the past 2 years used this every day as a bell ringer. Students had 3 minutes to write about a current event topic of their choice, and then for 2 minutes the teacher would call on students randomly to share their responses. And students got to the point where they were watching the news so that they would know more about current events. And this sparked discussions, sometimes heated, in the classroom, the hallways, the lunch table. But more than anything, they really enjoyed writing about something that they were passionate about. For sake of time, I'm just going to mention quickly these writing projects and collaborative writing. Both of these are ways to help make writing meaningful. I still remember a writing project I did when I was in high school. I was asked to interview a person and write a biography about them. So I chose my 96-year-old grandmother, and I went to her house with my tape recorder and my notebook, and I spent the afternoon walking back in time with her. And when it came time to write, what normally would have been a really boring or mundane task just kind of flowed with excitement for me, all because I was writing about something that was personally meaningful. Next slide, John. The last element of effective literacy instruction that we'll dive deeper into is every child talks with peers about reading and writing. This is important because research has demonstrated that conversation with peers improves comprehension and engagement with text in a variety of settings. So think about how this element relates to the comparative activity we did with the alcohol withdrawal passage and the book of your choice. I know you didn't actually get to talk with someone. You did this in writing with your chat buddy, but how did talking with someone about the book you chose solidify the meaning of that book for you? Anybody care to share?
Someone said, Dana says it gives you a new perspective.
Yeah, I think so. Sometimes talking with people about things gives you a new perspective. I think it also forces you to kind of think about your why you like it. All right, next slide, John.
Hey, Christy, can I add real quick that, peer conversation also serves, as just rehearsal for what you might put in your writing. I mean, it's oral rehearsal, and we know that that strengthens writing. It's just a great opportunity to practice a little bit of your thinking out loud before you get it on paper.
And I love what Sarah, Lynn, and Diane are saying. It helps you boil it down to what's important and exposes you to different ways of thinking about the same thing. Maybe you both read the same thing, so a different way of thinking, and they learn from each other sharing.
Great, yes, thank you. So as far as practically applying this element in the classroom, things like fish bowls and Socratic seminars are wonderful to use. I had planned to get into those a little more, but we are running out of time because of all our technology difficulty. But this turn and talk, John, what do you think about showing this video? Is that what keeps throwing me off?
It won't affect you, Christy, because we're running it off my computer now. Okay.
Okay.
So
All right.
I'll click it and we'll see what happens here. Okay?
All right. Thank you.
It doesn't affect you at all. Here we go. Okay, hang on just a second. Okay. Bear with me just one moment. Here we go. There we are. And share screen 3. Share. All right, here we go.
Turn and talk is basically an opportunity for the students to interact with each other. Usually you can do it as a warm-up or a closing, but usually you ask them a question, an essential question related to the content that you're teaching. How are our adaptations and natural selection related, okay? I want you to turn and talk. So that means turn to your shoulder partner and talk about this question. And I'll read the question out loud, and I'll tell the students, I want you to go ahead and turn to your shoulder partner, or turn and talk, and discuss this question. It's a great way for the kids to sort of help each other remember what we learned from the last class, or sort of give each other ideas of what we're talking about today. What I like the most about Turn and Talk is letting the students talk to each other and sort of help teach each other, because it's easy for me as a teacher to stand up there and talk and tell them information, but it's interesting to see what they remember and how they explain things to each other, as opposed to how maybe I might say something that might be a little too extended, and they'll be able to phrase it in a way that's more 7th grade teen friendly.
All right, John.
Okay.
So just like Bethany said, a turn and talk is a great tool to use in preparation for writing. And it really empowers students, kind of makes them in charge of their own learning. And it's really a beautiful thing to see students teaching each other in these turn and talks. All right, next slide. So we are coming to the end of our session, and what I would like to ask you to do is to reflect about our session today by answering one of these 3 questions. In what ways did your thinking change? What did you learn today that you would use in your classroom this fall? Or what do you see as the power of these 6 elements? And I'll give you about a minute. So we've got people wanting to use turn and talks, more choice, more peer interaction, less workbooks, yes. Yeah, just small shifts. These things don't really cost any money. They pair really nicely with whatever curriculum you all have adopted in your district. Writing for meaning over writing for conventions. Great. All right, thank you for sharing. Wish we had more time to go through all of these. Less busy work, yes. Great. All right, John, next slide. So there will be a recording of this session on our Virtual Summer Institute website, and there will also be a list of our materials. I hope that maybe you could go back and view that video and look through, since our time was cut short by our technology troubles. Next slide. Now I'll turn it back over to Sarah for some final direction.
Well, thank you all for attending this Virtual Summer Institute session. Please take our 1-minute survey. This survey will allow us to reflect on your thoughts about our session. We're always looking for ways to improve. Collect your information if you would like to receive a certificate of attendance for this session. So at this time, I am dropping in to the chat the form. If you will please go ahead and fill that out. I just now dropped that into the chat. And now I'm going to hand the session back over to Miss Christie. So thank you.
Thank you all for spending the hour with us. And I'm so sorry about all the technology difficulties. I hope that you were able to see that incorporating these 6 key elements of effective literacy instruction for every child every day not only will improve literacy, but they're just really simple and easy things to implement. You can just keep them in the forefront of your mind as you plan your lessons. Thank you so much. Y'all have a great day.